Welcome back to Kittens Crafts. I just wanted to take a moment at the beginning of this video to acknowledge the devastation that has gone on in the southern United States in the aftermath of Hurricanes Helene and now Milton. And my heart goes out to each and every one of you. All right, let's get started. So this is the mold that we're using today. It's the round bangle mold from littlewindows.com. And I already started putting the spider web on it. It's oh, and this is the mold that I'll be using for the spider that I'm going to be putting in the bangle mold. I already started putting the spider web around it, as you can see here. And I'm just going to show how I'm kind of tugging it back and forth and trying to put it into sort of a form. You can see my little attempt at making a funnel down there. It's silicone. It kind of half worked, but in the end it didn't really matter. So I chose to leave that part of the video out. But just putting the spider web into places and kind of stretching it and then securing it with a little bit of resin as I went. And you'll notice I'm doing a voiceover this time. This is the color that I use for part of the spider. It's the Sugar Light. And this is sped up really, really fast. So here I start applying the red coloring. And it's kind of a dainty little spot there, but you can see here I'm trying to be delicate and quick with my movements to try and get that shape that I'm going for, sort of a Black Widow shape. And it was just kind of tough to get it to stay, but I do flip it around, and I think in the end we end up with a pretty good shape. Now this mold, I used it because I don't really like most spider molds. They're either cartoony or just kind of an odd size, but this one, the mold is, the spider that's in there is the perfect shape and size for what I'm trying to do. It's almost life size. And here I can put in a little bit of details. Now I don't want to fill in the whole web, but I want the spider, so I'm going to take the time to really detail the spider, and in the end I clean it up to where it doesn't have a lot of extra. And here I use this metallic liner gel. It helps to back the red area so that it doesn't get muddied out by the black behind it. If I don't put anything in between there, you'll hardly be able to see the red detail. So I just put a little bit of this silver liner. Now this particular one does not cure under the UV light. I do still zap it with it to dry it a little bit because it still warms it up a little bit, but it doesn't completely cure it. And right here I use this top coat. It's Born Pretty. It's their super top coat, and I put it over the silver, and that's just to keep it in place. So I have found when I use this, sometimes if I just use resin over the top of it, the resin actually does weird things with it. It reacts with the liner because it doesn't cure all the way. It will sometimes float to the top. It does all kinds of odd things in just resin. So I put a little bit of top coat in between, and I love the Born Pretty super top coat. In this case, it doesn't matter, but for other projects, I sometimes put a top coat on them, and their top coat is scratch resistant. Once it's cured, you let it sit for a couple minutes after it's been cured. It's really the best top coat that I've found. You don't get fingerprints, you don't get scratches. It's really great. So here we're going in with our black. I ended up using 2 different black resins. You'll see much later in the video when I put the base on. It's a different concentration of black. You'll see what I mean later. I'll point it out. So I'm just going in. I spread the mold open a little bit so that I can get into those leg areas. If I don't do that, there will definitely be bubbles and it ruins the legs. So I take the time, and this brush that I'm using here is a nail liner brush. It's the only way to go when I'm doing something that is this detailed. And I'm just quickly filling it in, well, as quickly as possible. This video was quite long before I edited it. I started filming on Monday. It is now Thursday. But I have had my voice coming and going throughout the last couple of weeks. And it's still a little scratchy, but it just comes and goes. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't think I'm sick, but either way. I also had some, here I am trying to clean up around the legs just with a dry brush to try and pull some of the resin off before curing it. And now it's cured, and we still have a little bit of, oh, this part didn't get fast forwarded. That's okay. I still have a little bit of the mess. I tried to get as much of it as possible, but it's okay. That's not too much of the overspill from around the spider. Not too bothered by it. And I added a little top coat to the top of the abdomen. I don't think it mattered in the end, but it makes the red pop a little bit, and it's pretty. And there's our finished spider after I cleaned it up, and now I'm placing it. And see, I had that little funnel in that spot right there, so I tried to place that spider in front of the funnel, and then I adjusted the other side so that they were kind of even. And then I just take the time to fill this, and in filling it, I have to fill it and then let it soak into the webbing that's in there. Now, these spider webs are glow-in-the-dark ones. It doesn't dramatically affect the piece. It's just what I happen to have around. And I did find that if I zap it really well with a UV light and then turn that off in the dark, it does glow a little bit. I don't have any of that on the video, but I may post that to my channel later in the week or something. I don't know if I can catch it on camera, to be honest. It's a very light glow. So here I'm taking the time to get some of the bubbles out. Some of the bubbles I left in just because it does kind of add to the webbing around it. And it was a little bit hard to get them out of certain areas that were trapped by the resin that I'd put in earlier. And I was just topping it off right there. So I cut some details out of the video just because you don't want to just see me pouring resin the whole time. It was a very long process. I sped up a bunch of it, but then I cut some of it out as well. And here I am demolding just the bangle part. And I'll do another bangle bracelet later on. This was just for this Halloween collab, which, hello. This is part of a Halloween collab hosted by Mini Scenes GB, Tracy over there. I will have the link in the description. Oh, and this is where I realized that it was upside down. I put the spiders in upside down. Which it's okay in the end because I had to sand both sides. So after I cleaned it up and sanded it, it didn't really matter. But I should have put the spiders in upside down when I was placing them in the mold so that when they came out, they were right side up. And there it is, all cleaned up. So you can kind of see I ended up sanding both sides, so it looks fine. But again, this is a Halloween collab hosted by Tracy. And if you can, hit that link in the description and it'll take you to the rest of the playlist. And there are going to be so many great crafters on YouTube that are going to be available. Here I am taking the mold after I'd cleaned the mold. I'm taking these two toothpicks just to kind of give me an idea of how large the opening is for the scene that I'm putting into this. So what I'm doing here is I'm making a couple of tombstones, and I'd mixed up some gray. I had the black that I had used previously, and I'm just making tombstones. That's all this is. There, I zoomed in because I realized it was hard to see. And it's just a light gray. I just mixed a little bit of white with the black that I had sitting there. I didn't use too many colors in this as far as the painting goes, because it's a Halloween scene. I wanted there to be darkness. And this did take some time as well. When I paint, like I said, I started filming on Monday. It's now Thursday. It took me all this time just to paint this out. I put a lot of details in it. There's a lot of layers to it. And for me, doing the tombstones separately, I learned this with another piece that I had done. If I paint the tombstones onto one of these silicone, I have these silicone pads. I have a thinner one, and then I have this one. And I think you can just, I don't know where the link is for this. I don't remember when I got it. I believe you can just search on Amazon for a silicone pad for nail art, and you should be able to find a whole slew of them. And I'll put links for most of the products in my description box underneath the playlist link. There's quite a bit of stuff in this. And hopefully I'll be able to find all the links before I need to send my video link off to Tracy. And here, as I paint, I zap. To get all the details in, I need to be able to zap as I go. So there's layering, even though it's a really thin and small piece, there's a lot of layering that goes into that. And I did actually have a section of video that had me mixing up this green. I don't know where it went. But all it is the yellow green from Let's Resin, from the alcohol inks, and pine green from Marabou. I don't know what happened to that section of video. Because there was so many pieces that I pieced together, it just got lost in the mix. But that's all that is. It's a little bit of white, a little bit of pine green, and a little bit of yellow green. And it was just to give me kind of a sagey green color. And I used it as sort of a moss accent on these tombstones. And I'm also using my black resin as, I don't know if it really comes across, but I was going for like a cracked tombstone there. And you'll notice that I left the bottoms rough. And you'll see why when I go to place it into the scene. And this is my first time doing a voiceover, so there may be times when I'm kind of jumping around from subject to subject. Sorry. I don't know how to do this. I suppose I could put some music in. I don't really have the time to search up a bunch of music that is non-licensed. So I'm just going to jibber jabber at you. I hope you don't mind. Yeah, so I added a third tombstone. I was actually going to only do two. Decided it needed a third because I wanted to have another shape. On that cracked one, I also kind of went for an off shape on the top. I was kind of going for it to be like one of the corners was cracked off a little bit. So a little rough. And again, I'm kind of putting some shading in to have a little bit of green to it. And these are cream gels, solid cream nail gels. I have 2 palettes of them. And when I'm doing something like this, like adding details that are very thin, it's a lot easier than using resin. Because resin, especially for black, you need it to be able to cure, and you need it to be able to be really, really thin. So for this, I just used my solid cream gels, and they also cure in the UV light perfectly. So sometimes use that. I'm learning how to paint with them right now. They probably would have been nice to be able to do this, but I like having the depth of doing this particular kind of scene in resin. I want there to be, you'll see at the end what I mean by it is super layered and there's a lot of depth to the final piece. It actually doesn't come across in the video as well. This is a really quick excerpt of me just putting clear into the bottom of the mold. So it's just a layer of clear, and then I have these black flowers, and I'm using the stems from some of the black flowers that I had used in another piece. So I'd clipped all the little flowers off, and I saved the stems anyways, just because I thought they would be useful at some point, and here we are being able to use them. So I like being able to use the entire thing. And these little stems make perfect little trees, especially in a dark scene. So like a silhouette of the trees, fall time after the leaves have fallen off. Also, there was a couple of flowers kind of left towards the base stems, and to me they kind of look like blackbirds. So I've had that song stuck in my head for days. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Anyways, you don't want to hear that. So here I am just arranging the stems in the mold. And if I can find the link, I will definitely put the link to just these black flowers. I don't know if I got them on Temu or Amazon. Hopefully I find it. I know putting Temu links in my videos is sometimes problematic. Here, I'm just putting a little bit of white behind where I'm going to have the moon. And I also start adding in some of my layers of clouds. I like to have layers of them so that they have a little 3D-ness to them, a little depth to them. And also, I wanted this to have fog in the scene, so I begin kind of putting a fog layer down. And I hope it comes across in the end product. But yeah, we just start adding that in. These parts I do kind of cure as I go. I don't fully cure them. I just take a moment to kind of zap them so that they're solid enough to continue to paint on. And then here I started adding in the green, and then you'll actually notice the lighting changed. I had to stop videoing for that first day because my kids came home, and here I am the second day, and I'm continuing on. So I start putting my layers of green down for our little hillside that I'm doing this scene on, and I kind of go a little wonky with the painting of this part. I'm putting sort of a hill. It's sort of flat, and I didn't like how it was flat, so I started adding in, plus it wasn't up to where my fog line was, so I started adding in kind of hills and valleys eventually. And then I mixed a little bit of black with that green, and I also later on mix a little bit more gray and green, I believe. Oh yeah, I put a little bit of gray into there. I just thought it looked nicer. So I wanted to have like a darker of the dark green and then a sort of medium dark green. And I used that to kind of add in some details. And you'll notice I went back to the thinner brush again because I wanted it to look like a grassy hill. Sort of overgrown-ish. So I start putting in some of the darker sort of valley area. And as it goes here, I'm not sure that my video editor is really keeping up with the voice track because I noticed that it's kind of pausing. So I hope this voiceover doesn't get completely messed up. But we will do our best with the technology we have at hand. So here I am putting in some more layers, and I don't want just dark green up there, so then I start putting in some of the lighter green. Oh, now my voice is going to try and cut out again. If that happens, we'll see what we see. So yeah, here I am putting in some more of the green. And I really do like how this came together, even though it did take 3 days of filming. And it ends up being only a 49.5-minute video. But there's so many details. Like, if I had not sped up the majority of this video, we were looking at least 4 hours of video. And I cut out some things, but really the speeding up is what ended up doing it. And projects like this don't normally take me 3 days. It's just filming and having to pause and then start up again, or when there's other things going on. I definitely had noises in my background, people doing laundry, you know, just the everyday things that happen at home. And then, of course, my voice cutting in and out. So normally a project like this should not take 3 days. Even with the details that I put in, it should only take me about a day to do all the things. Also, I was kind of playing with this mold. I wanted to see how well I did with this particular scene. I did actually do another one that's more just fall. And it's fall leaves with a shimmery reddish orange background. And that one ended up kind of looking like an ashtray, but it's like a trinket dish. And it's very pretty. And maybe I'll post that one. When I get the picture of the glow-in-the-dark part of the bangle, I'll take a picture of the other trinket dish that I made, and you guys can see how that one turned out as well. And I think at this point I had like made some like really grassy looking strokes of the brush, and it looked really cool for like a half a second, and then I went over it because I needed it thicker. There was too much of the background, the stems coming through, so I had to thicken it up, and ended up washing out the details that I'd put in and then put more details in. But that may have added to the grassy look in the end. I'm not entirely sure. I also ended up with a bubble inside of the green on the right side, but you can't see it. I was able to cover it up and keep it from affecting the look. And there are going to be bubbles when you put a bunch of things inside of a piece like this, between the dried flowers and trying to add in things. I do try my best to keep as many bubbles out as possible, but a few managed to kind of sneak through. There I was making sure that the stone was going to fit, and then I put down some clear and I placed the tombstone into the piece, and then I apply some clear all the way around the tombstone and zap it really quick, just to make sure if there are any bubbles behind that thin piece. And that thin piece is not rock hard like it normally would be because there's so much color in it. So it's kind of almost gummy. If there's any air behind it, putting the clear around it locks it behind it so it can't just come out willy-nilly. There I am putting the moon up there. And I use the silicone brush to get the edges down. And then I'm going to add some bats. I'm using some bats off of a Halloween nail sheet. These are the first 2 bats I put down. There's 4 in the end, but I needed them layered so that there's some depth. And then I wanted that back tombstone kind of set behind, and the moon to be set behind. And then I put some clouds in front of it. And then some of the clouds end up over one of the wings of the bat, just like it's flying out of the clouds. And these are low clouds. like fog clouds. So I start kind of putting in some. I cure it really quick because every now and again I want it to be cured, and I didn't want to put down the clear before the white was cured because it'll mess with the look of it. So I did a cure with the big lamp, and here I am putting in a layer of clear, and I do that a couple of times, putting the clear in between. I don't know what I was pointing out there. Oh, there was that bubble down there. I'm just smoothing out the surface there as far as I can tell. And then I cure it, and then I come back in and I add in some more details. I put in some clear and put in the other tombstone onto that side. And I do something with that tombstone later. It's going to be a if you know, you know type of a moment. I'll point it out, but it's mainly for Doctor Who fans. And there I am putting the clear around this. Now this one I didn't cure right away. I put the clear around it, and then I took the opportunity to take some white. And since there's still a big layer of clear right there, I can kind of use that to make it more wispy looking. So I take the white around, and then I end up also taking the opportunity to add in some more clouds. I believe I put it in right here. I kind of start going back and forth between white and clear for a minute. And then I added in some more shadows, all while the clear was still wet. Yeah, putting some more clouds up top. Kind of stretching them out. And there I put some in the center. And then I'm going to put some off to the left here, and you'll see me do something that I wouldn't always do. Normally I would put them in behind those, but I wanted them to be around those stems that are right there, but I still wanted the stems to be pretty vividly in front of them. So I end up taking my silicone brush here and just kind of scraping along where the stem is. Not scraping, but like I just take the silicone brush right there just so that the stem is in front of those clouds. And put some more fog down around the ground. Oh, this is me where I had the silicone brush just there. I took and wiped some of the clouds off of that front tombstone, because I wanted some of those to be really behind that one. That one's supposed to be closer. Adding in some more shade right there. I believe I end up putting some more green in here in a second. I've forgotten some of my details. Okay. And I believe I just cured it. And now, yeah, I have my cream gels again. And here I am putting in the little Easter egg. And then I messed up right there, so I end up wiping it off and fixing it. I put the R too close, so I couldn't get the E didn't look right, so I didn't put the parts coming off of the E. And I am grabbing so little of that black gel that I have to keep going over it to make it solid, because I'm grabbing so little of it at a time. But that's my little Easter egg I added. If you know, you know. And then I go ahead and give that a cure. Like I said, those cream gels are great because they cure under the UV light. Pardon me. And then I'm going back in with some more. I believe right there was a hair in it, and I was trying to get it ready to put clear. Yeah, and now there is a layer of clear on there. Here I'm putting a cross on that front tombstone. And I did want it in the clear this time instead of putting it with a flat background, because I wanted it to kind of have some curvature. If you put the nail decals in on a smooth background, they're just flat. But if you put them in with a wet background, then they kind of curve up at the edges. And then this one right here, I added in the bats, so we're good there. And I added in a little kitty, because why not? But there we have all of our details put in. And more clear coat. Or I shouldn't call it clear coat, just a clear layer to seal everything in. And if you see there's a lot of bubbles going on. This is the part where I start really dealing with the bubbles, because I'm putting a thicker layer to really seal this all together. I do make sure that the clear gets around the edges, and I start the fight because I know it's going to go underneath there, but I don't want those big areas that I'm going to have to sand. So there's a process that I go through, and I've mentioned it before, where I will push the piece down and allow the bubbles to come up, kind of scrape them away with the brush. Not scrape, just pull them out of there, and then let go, and it sucks more of the clear underneath against the mold. And I'll keep going back and forth and doing that to get all the bubbles out. And then I do cut away, as I have to have it up close to me to make sure I'm getting the rest of those. Plus, this mold is great because I can see through the bottom. So I was making sure I had all of them out. So here we are. It's all cured and nice and smooth on the top. I do need to clean it up, so this is where I do that. And here it is all sanded down. I have some blue tack underneath there to hold it still, so I was making sure it was level so that I could dome it. I wanted this one domed before placing it inside of the frame, the bangle mold frame. The bangle, our spider bangle, we'll call it. And that is what we're using for our frame. So here I am just doming this piece with UV resin. And yes, this is all 100% UV resin. I didn't use skim coat for any of this either. This is just the Resin Rockers hard type UV. And here I am just smoothing out the surface and getting to the edges without going over. You don't want it to spill over in this case. So, and then it's cured and I flip it over. And on the other side, I'm just going to put a very thin painting of clear, because we're going to be adding in our, they're not Chameleon flakes, they're Aurora flakes, I believe they're called, or Opal flakes. But they are just like Chameleon flakes. They're just more of a transparent type. They're one of my favorite things because they look like one color, and then they look it if you know, you know. But I'm just putting a thin layer of clear on the back of this, brushing it on there, trying to keep it smooth. I let it sit for a second so that the brush strokes aren't obvious. And then I do put it under my lamp, 15 watts for about 30 seconds. And then I start brushing on my flakes. And I do believe I have the link for that one. It's one of my favorite colors. It looks sort of like a golden yellow with a white background, and it's sort of this indigo purple, a blue purple with a black background. Also, when you look at it at an angle, it's sort of a purpley gold, pinky purple. I don't know. It's a really cool color. I like it a lot. And it is very transparent. So what I end up doing with this piece is I go over the back of just the scene, and then I place it inside of our bangle. And then I put a layer underneath our bangle. You'll see. I'll point it out as I go. So there's our bangle, and we've got the flakes on there on the scene. And then for our bangle, I put it on my silicone pad, all cleaned off. Of course, I used tape to make sure that the surface was clean. And then I put some clear around because that bangle's not 100% flat, so it's not secure to the silicone. So I put a layer of clear to join that crevice so it's not going to leak out underneath there. So you just kind of carefully and kind of slowly, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the bangle itself, because if I push down, then when I let go, it's going to try and get all that resin to suck out underneath there. So we just kind of carefully and slowly, without a lot of pressure, kind of put it around the edges and then cure it. And then here I am putting in our bottom layer of clear. I think I went through an entire bottle of the 100-gram bottle of resin, because I just bought it and now it's gone. You'll see at the end, it ends up leaving at the end of this video. So there I am, just smoothing out that surface, trying to make sure that there's not too many bubbles underneath there. It's sealed to the silicone pretty well, and I just want it to be kind of smooth. And then we place our scene right in the center, and you can see that beautiful kind of bluish color in the background. And now I just go around with the clear all the way around this piece, and I double up on. So first we have our layer of clear, and then we put our piece into it, and then we put more around it, and then we cure it, and then I'll put more around it. So I kind of double up that layer there. And I want that space in between the scene and the frame, so it's almost like it has, you know how pictures have sort of what do you call that? It's the part in between the frame and the picture. There's the board that goes around a picture. Backing board? I don't know. Word finding is difficult. So I wanted that space there to not have as many layers of the flakes as the center part, so that there's sort of a transition between the scene and the frame. It's just personal choice. You are fully capable of just putting this, like doing the clear on the bottom, like you don't have to put the flakes in between, and then just backing the whole thing. You don't have to do it to where you put the flakes on and then put it in the piece, and then like I did here. You can cut out steps. I put too many steps in things. So now it's cured, and since it was on that silicone, the bottom is actually still a little bit tacky. Not a ton, but a little bit. So I can apply my flakes to the bottom. And the flakes got kind of crazy around this point in the video. I was actually having trouble with them flying all over the place. So there was a couple times I had to pause to kind of clean up because they're very, very light. These fly around really easy. But here I am just applying them to the bottom of the whole piece. I really love that color. It's so pretty. I'm a blue fan. I love blue things. But I love this particular color because it's kind of got a cobalt blue to it. And then it's got like the edges of purple to it. It's so pretty. So we just rub that all the way around. And I do take tape and go around the bangle on the outside to try and minimize how much got on the outside of it. I did pretty well keeping it off of the front. Kind of happy with that. But there we are. We're getting close to being done, guys. And there it is. All the flakes on it. And I did put down a couple of pieces of blue tack and I leveled it again because now I'm going to take my black colorant and some resin. Now this time I made it too thin. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. I mixed it up and it was just a bit too thin for my liking. And my resin was really warm for some reason, so it was a little bit thin. And it didn't actually, but I'm glad I still did this layer because it locked down the flakes. But you'll see here, it kind of tries to separate almost. It's like trying to put water on top of oil. So I ended up doing something right after this, and you'll see that in just a moment. After I kind of, not really dome it, because I didn't want this to be domed. I wanted it to be pretty flat. So I was trying to do as thin of a layer as possible. But of course, it's not enough black to really give us the effect I'm going for either. But having that in between, having a layer of clear even in between this color and a black background makes the color pop more than just putting it on top of a black background. I may do a video about that at some point because I have other types of these Aurora flakes too. And I have found that you just get different effects if you put a layer of clear or even a tinted layer in between the flakes and whatever your background color is. It affects the aspects of the flake. I'll have to do a video about that. You know, I test these things and I play around with them. So here I decide to just start pouring it on. And you can see it was trying to separate off of the flake layer. Aurora flakes, opal flakes, whatever you call them. And this one I got off of AliExpress. I know that one because I love the color. I think it was AliExpress. Oh. So here we are. The layer is cured. But I go in with this is just black gel polish. And it's the Beetle brand one, but I think I have other brands of it. Just whatever black polish that you like. It's a great kind of cheat for doing a black backing on pieces, especially if you don't want them very thick and you don't want it domed. I do it with some of the jewelry pieces that I do. Having gel polish laying around, definitely the way to go. So I can make it flat. And if you let it sit after you do the brush strokes, if you let it sit, those brush strokes kind of fill in for a second before you cure it. It smooths it out a little bit. Just like doing your nails. Sometimes you got to let it sit before you cure it so that it's smooth. So I do 2 layers of this gel polish. Layer 2. And I don't know why I did the like lines. It's almost like a clock line. I always do that on a round piece. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason for it. It doesn't, it's not like I'm following some sort of, it's just what my brain does. It creates like a little pie piece. I don't even fill it in. I don't know why I do that. My first couple of strokes, it's going to be like that. One of those funny little things. So here I am, just doing my second coating of this. And then I do put on a final very thin layer of clear over the top of this, because you still want the outside to be resin. If it's just the polish, it'll chip. So either a top coat, if you want to do it that way, but you definitely need some sort of coating over the top of the polish. And that's pretty much it. And then we will see the final piece. I left it down for a reason. I kind of like having a reveal. I don't normally get one in my projects. So this one, I didn't even look at the front until it was completed after I was done with the black layer. And this was in between days, like one day. So I didn't get to see it for a whole day. But I think it turned out pretty well in the end. We'll find out in just a second. Here I am. Oh, see? That's where my resin ran out. So I used an entire 100-gram bottle of resin for this project. That's not entirely true. I was doing other projects on the side because I'm super busy right now. I have a craft fair coming up. I'm making a ton of pieces at the same time as I'm doing the rest of this. And I did want to have another video out this week, but I'm sorry. Between filming and editing, it's going to be next week before I get that one out. There I am, just smoothing. It's a very thin layer of resin. Just smoothing it out. And I did zap it with my torch there. You may have seen the bubbles disappear. And now we come to our reveal. So it's all done. The bottom is smooth. And I'm pulling it up off of here, taking the blue tack. It's pink, but it's called blue tack. Taking the blue tack off of there. And I like how the spiders came out. You can see, and see how smooth that bottom of that piece is? And it's nice and flat. I really like how that came together. But you can see the spiders there on the sides. And they're very realistic looking. I had one of these sitting out on the table, and one of my kids actually thought it was a real spider for just a moment, but it was there. But the spiders do look great. And there we go. See, it's just beautiful. I love the colors, and you can see around the frame, it adds to the webbing being in there actually kind of gives it almost like a frosted look to it, but it adds to the angles that you're going to see those colors, the pinks and purples and golds, because when you look straight on, you get that blue, that indigo blue color, but around the sides and when you tilt it and see the depth of the layers, it really doesn't come across in the video as much. I will take more pictures so that you can really see more, but it doesn't come across on the camera like it does in person. Well, I hope you liked that video and my raspy voice. Oh, yeah, here I am displaying. It can be a trinket, or you can just hang it up, put it on a shelf as a decoration. But I hope you liked that video. I will see you next time. Bye.